Shalom, Erev Tov and Chag Sameach. Thank you for joining me, Rabbi Rudin-Luria from B'nai Jeshurun, as part of our Tikkun at Home series, teaching today and tonight, Crowning Our Everyday Heroes, Lessons from the Book of Ruth. Are you wearing your crown, sitting on your throne right now? Or perhaps are you sitting on your couch, your office chair, at your kitchen table for hours on end, waiting to get a haircut, wearing a hat to cover your grown-out hairdo? The main message of Shavuot and the Book of Ruth is that every moment is an opportunity to crown the day. We each have the power and ability to become royalty. In the words of my Peloton instructor, Rabbi Narzan, we just need to straighten up and adjust our crown, especially in these times of the pandemic that we're living with today, whether sheltering at home, risking our lives by providing essential services, or moving to a slow reopening. Now more than ever, we see our everyday heroes and crown their achievements. After delving into the Book of Ruth, I can share with you a fast track to the crown that awaits you. The recipe for success. It is through living with kindness, chesed, performing deeds of loving kindness, celebrating the royalty in our midst, the everyday heroes all around us. Ruth is just that, a story that highlights everyday heroes that live with kindness in the midst of tragedy and loss. They maintain hope and optimism, and through it all, at every opportunity, perform small acts of kindness that bring light to darkness, crown each moment. Each of the main characters in our story, Ruth, Naomi, and Boaz, do just that. They live each day wisely, living kindness bravely, sometimes brazenly, sometimes gently. But why Ruth? Ruth is a beautiful short story. It's a brief 4 chapters that's traditionally read on our festival of Shavuot. Perhaps because it's setting in time, the main narrative occurs during the barley and wheat harvest, exactly the season that we are in now. The days of the Omer leading up to the Shavuot, when the harvest was complete. Ruth is considered the first Jew by choice, converting and accepting Judaism as her own, joining the Jewish people with her personal Sinai experience. Just as we renew our commitment and connection, our promise to live by our Jewish traditions, renewing the covenant at Sinai this day, on the anniversary of the day that our ancestors stood at Mount Sinai, and perhaps we did too. What better day than to read the story of the first Jew by choice, since aren't we all Jews by choice? I'm not sure if you're the type of person that jumps to the last page and reads the end of a book first, but spoiler alert, the book of Ruth ends with the birth of a child. Not just any child, moving from loss and tragedy to hope and a bright future. That child will be the father of our own King David, meaning Ruth the convert is the grandmother of the great King David. David, the warrior poet, the great leader of the Jewish people who has an intrinsic tie to Shavuot. Tradition says that he was born and that he also died on this day, on Shavuot. So perhaps we read this scroll, this biblical book, this Megillah, because it foretells of David, who himself, tradition teaches, wrote the book of Psalms, divided into 5 sections. The poetic Psalms considered a parallel to the 5 books of Moses, the Torah, which we celebrate and pledge to uphold this day on Shavuot. So why do we read and study the book of Shavuot? Because the Talmud teaches, actually Ruth Rabbah, the Midrash teaches, Rabbi Zera says, this scroll of Ruth tells us nothing of purity or impurity, of prohibition or permission. For what purpose was it written? Why was it included in the Tanakh, the most holy of our texts, the biblical canon? If it doesn't teach us laws, commandments, then what is its purpose here? This is what the rabbis say. The book teaches us how great is the reward of those who perform deeds of loving kindness. Chesed, gemilut chasadim. Following in the tradition of Abraham and Sarah, Rebekah and so many others of our avot v'imahot, our biblical ancestors, Ruth is known for her kindness. And this story reminds us that all of society benefits from the generous behavior of individuals and that the results of compassion are truly apparent in our world, even today. And though Naomi and Boaz both clearly live lives of kindness and gratitude, Ruth is the namesake of our book, the highlighted heroine, a woman who begins in our story as a poor, homeless foreigner, a young, childless widow that is not accepted into greater society. She becomes the highlighted hero, our hero, an everyday hero that goes to work in the fields. That's the primary caregiver to her widowed mother-in-law, the breadwinner of the family, and eventually a mother and grandmother to the king of Israel. To do my bad rabbi puns justice, throughout the book we are rooting for Ruth, not just because we love stories of overcoming hardship, but rather because of her enduring and almost contagious chesed, her genuine kindness that inspires others to reciprocate with kindness. Her kindness is infectious. No mass jokes here or contact tracing. In fact, her name is the only clue we need, a secret to know the essence of a person. The rabbis present multiple understandings of the etymology, the root of the name Ruth. First among them is rivaya, overflowing, from the phrase from the Psalm 23, kosi rivaya, my cup is overflowing, for Ruth was overflowing with kindness. When we meet Naomi, Ruth's Jewish mother-in-law, she describes herself as the opposite, bitter and empty. She tries to send her daughter-in-laws back home to Moab. Stay, so that you can have a future and perhaps a family of your own, she says. But Ruth remains by her side, selfless, giving up her Moabite identity. She clings to Naomi, using the Hebrew word davak. She attaches herself, she glues herself to Naomi, selfless for the other's benefit alone, to provide her mother-in-law support, transcending her own personal needs, a courageous and compassionate choice, pledging, I will follow you. Your people will be my people, your God, my God. And you can see on this slide the great teaching. Naomi says, turn back, my daughters. It's hopeless to follow me. Leave so that the Lord will deal kindly with you, that God will grant you chesed. But Ruth clings to her. Ruth replies, do not urge me to leave you, to turn back and not follow you. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people shall be my people, your God, my God. Nothing could separate her, not being isolated. No barrier could stop her from being with those that she loved and sharing her kindness. In this story, kindness is shown through the qualities of loyalty, charity, selflessness, optimism, and hope. These are truly recipes for royalty that we can each aspire to. Another quality of kindness is being open-minded, opening our eyes to see that which is often not in our sights, whether it's the kindness that others show to us or the strangers and hardship that exist in our neighborhoods that we often turn a blind eye toward or simply overlook. And that's what we read in chapter 2. When Ruth is out gathering food in Boaz's field, Boaz approaches her and shares his kindness with her. He says, I've ordered the men not to molest you. Thank God for that. And when you're thirsty, go to the jars and drink some of the water they have drawn. He didn't have to do that. In fact, Ruth replies, why are you being so kind as to single me out when I myself am a foreigner? And Boaz answers very quickly, I have been told of all that you have done for your mother-in-law. May the Lord reward you for all of your kindness. Here Boaz sees a poor stranger in his fields. He could have made a rash judgment, thrown her out. Instead, he welcomed her. He gives her his crop's gleanings, plus She basically got an Instacart basket, a DoorDash dinner, and an Amazon delivery's worth of food. Even though she was unknown, somehow he already knew her. Her kindness had become well known. Her everyday kindness that she had shown to her mother-in-law branded her a Wonder Woman, a superhero, and inspired Boaz to act with generosity. Some suggest that Boaz says to himself, "You can't be a stranger because you remind me of my ancestors, Abraham and Sarah, who journeyed from a foreign land, a strange land, and lived lives framed by kindness." I keep harping on the fact that Ruth was an outsider, a foreigner, not truly accepted into Israelite society. Perhaps like the superhero origin stories of Superman or Wonder Woman, born from another planet or an ancient hidden island, Ruth comes from another place, the neighboring nation of Moab, a cousin of Israel. But when her ancestors wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, the Jewish people passed by the lands of Moab. They were not granted safe passage, nor were they offered food or water. Their insensitivity to outsiders, strangers in need of food, clothing, and shelter in desperate times, because of that, the Torah placed a ban on Ammonites and Moabites to be eternal outsiders. Ruth, through her superhuman, I'm possibly exaggerating a little, perhaps Ruth, through her everyday kindness, was able to transcend the seemingly eternal law, to reverse the curse by cleaving to kindness, by living a life of loyalty and love, to merit the crown of the Jewish people, elevating royalty from a lowly Moabite who exhibits the best of Jewish values, an everyday hero with a heart of gold. Perhaps her name Ruth is taken from the Hebrew word re'ut, meaning friendship. For Ruth built relationships, even when there were barriers that seemingly kept them isolated and apart. I could give you example after example of the loyalty, kindness, friendship, and love in the book of Ruth. Like Ruth today, we see so many everyday heroes shining brightly through this pandemic. We are reminded that kindness is infectious and the importance that even in the midst of tragedy and loss, generosity and loyalty are our guiding principles. Ruth also provides the true guide for governing society. Remember, King David is literally born here and is born today. So how can you be a good ruler? How should you wear your crown? There are two parallels. The opening line of the book of Ruth sets its historical time period. In the time period of the biblical book of Judges, Shoftim, of Samson and Jephthah, Deborah and Gideon, this period is summarized by this closing line of the book. Bayamim hahem ein melech b'Yisrael. In those days there was no king in Israel. Ish hayashar be'enav ya'aseh. Everyone did as they pleased, what looked right in their own eyes. Everyone did what was good or proper in their own eyes. That was good for them. They judged it based on themselves, at times very selfish thinking, not selfless. They didn't consider their larger communal responsibility as opposed to the true ideals of those wearing the crown, and that of our book of Ruth. From the book Ruth, From Alienation to Monarchy, Dr. Yael Zeiger teaches this. The book of Ruth aims to describe the anticipation of the creation of a monarchy that oversees a just society where all people receive their just due. A nation where its leadership draws strength and inspiration from God and looks out for the needs of the community, guiding the nation with morality. The nation includes the stranger, the widow, and the poor. All characters in our story. In fact, Ruth herself personifies all three. She is both the stranger, the widow, and also the poor. And that the monarchy should celebrate those close bonds and relationships built between others. This short, idyllic book, with its difficult, tragic beginning and triumphant conclusion, provides a prelude and foretaste of a hopeful and promising future. Okay, so we've established that the foundations of monarchy and government should be chesed. Amen. Ken yehi ratzon. Let it be that kindness is the guiding force of a nation. But not all of us will be like the British royal family, wearing crowns all the time. Even Harry and Meghan gave up their crowns. And what about Wonder Woman? Who can wear her golden tiara? But remember, the book of Ruth teaches, we each have the potential to be royalty. We can be crowned, even a Moabite. So the rabbis teach us that there are other crowns that we can wear. So get ready to put on your crown, everybody. From the Mishnah, Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Sages, we learn this. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shlosha Ketarim hen, Keter Torah, V'Keter Kihuna, V'Keter Malchut, V'Keter Shem Tov, Ole al Gabehen. Rabbi Shimon teaches that there are 3 crowns, not just one. There's the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of royalty. But then there's a 4th crown. The crown of a good name excels them all. It supersedes them. It rises above them. A Keter Shem Tov, having a good name. The crown of a good name is held even higher than all the others. Rabbi Yonah, in his commentary on Pirkei Avot, teaches this. He says that for all the first 3 crowns, they need the crown of a good name. Teaching, and behold, that is dependent upon the crown of Torah. In Ecclesiastes, a good name is considered better than oil. He meant to say here that if he puts down precious oil in one's house, it has a good smell for him, all the people in his house, and perhaps his close neighbors smell that good smell. But those from a distance, it doesn't affect them. It doesn't spread out to them. They don't smell that. But with one who is crowned with a good name, even if he stands in this corner, his reputation, his Shem Tov, his good name, goes from one end of the world to the other. Like the kind and loyal reputation of Ruth, which preceded her, which Boaz heard of from across another nation. Maimonides continues in his commentary, these 3 good ranks were given to the Jewish people at the time of the giving of the Torah, today on Shavuot, priesthood, monarchy, and Torah. Aaron is the one who merits priesthood. David merits kingship. But he teaches the crown of Torah remains for anyone who wants to be crowned by it, anyone who studies Torah, just like you. Right now, you're studying Torah and you're gaining that crown of Torah, Keter Torah. But the 4th crown, the crown of a good name, comes from Torah as well, but it combines not just study, but also practice. Only by studying and living a life filled with Torah. Only by living a life with chesed and kindness. Only through both do you truly get a good name. We can each merit the highest possible crown, the crown of a good name, by living a life of kindness. We actually already had a crowning moment. In fact, on this very day, on Shavuot, we were handed our first crowns. When we stood at Mount Sinai, it was given to our ancestors, our spiritual ancestors, or as tradition teaches, it was given to you and me. For we each were at Mount Sinai together. For the Talmud teaches in Rabbi Simlai's name, when Israel accorded precedence to the declaration, we will do over we will hear. Meaning, when in our Torah it says, Na'aseh v'nishma, when we said that together, Na'aseh v'nishma, what happened? We didn't just receive the Torah, but tradition teaches that hundreds of thousands of angels appeared, and each tied 2 crowns to the head of every single Jew at Mount Sinai, one for Na'aseh and one for Nishma. We will do and we will obey. We were already crowned on this day. This is the anniversary of our coronation, our crowning. However, tradition teaches us that at the time of the golden calf, we lost our crowns. They were taken from us. But don't worry, they weren't lost forever. For it says that Moses took all the crowns. He saved them for us. As Reish Lakish teaches in the Talmud, in the future, God will return those crowns to each and every one of us. From the quote from Isaiah, "And the ransom of the Lord shall return and come with singing unto Zion. Everlasting joy shall be upon their heads." The joy they once had, those are the crowns, will once again be put upon their heads. The rabbis ask, is there any hope that we will ever regain these crowns that God hand-delivered to us at Sinai? The mystical Zohar teaches that Moses, in his great love for the Jewish people, returned the crowns back to them. What does this mean? It means that all the crowns remain available today for each and every one of us. Through Torah study, by literally jumping into the sea of Torah, just like we're doing together right now, by engaging with our core text, by living the values and ideals that we hold most dear, like the chesed of Ruth, our Wonder Woman, our everyday hero, selfless and loyal, generous to a fault, understated with the biggest heart. By following our traditions and sharing our stories, every person in every generation, each one of us can be crowned, just like our everyday heroes, with the same crowns that were given to us at Mount Sinai. Chag Sameach, and thank you for learning with me.